Good day. Welcome to another episode. Today I'm joined by Nils Schnell. Hello, Nils. How are you?
Hi, Luis. Glad to be here.
Thank you for being here. Okay, so Nils is from the channel The Snells, right?
Yes,
And you're talking about and you make videos about the future of work.
hmm that's true. That's our main focus to see, how the world is working and what the future of work will look like around the world.
Okay, yeah. So tell me a little bit about the content of your channel and how did you get the inspiration to begin your channel?
hmm So the idea of the channel was to bring more vivid details, more videos to the people. Before that, we were just writing about our big global journey called Modern Work Tour. And we had the impression that with all the video material, it would be way nicer for people to get an idea of what we are observing and people we meet, etc. So that was the reason why we said, okay, we have to set up our old YouTube channel again and start doing the videos so that others can get inspired too.
Okay. So, right now you're doing a tour around the world, right?
Yes, that's true. Like our global modern work tour will go in total to 55 countries. And the idea is to be on all continents and meet as many people as possible when it comes to the future of work.
Okay. So, and how did you decide which countries were you going to visit? Do you have a planned route before you started, or you just along the way you're deciding where you're going next?
So we, in the beginning, we thought about certain places we definitely want to go. And then, of course, there were also many countries we had no clue about. And then there were countries where we did know that it would be really great to come, but it will be a little bit tough or hard, maybe also to come. And then the kind of the main route evolved over time, but always had some cornerstones like Sydney in Australia, for example, or Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia. So that's how the route came together.
And up to now, which countries have you visited?
You mean all 52 countries?
Up to now,
Yeah. So we have visited countries in Balkan. We have visited countries in Asia, like Mongolia, China, Kazakhstan. We've been to Southeast Asia, like Philippines or Indonesia, to Australia, but also to the Middle East and to the Emirates. And after that, we've been to Western Africa, Eastern Africa, and Namibia. Then Corona came and we got stuck in Namibia somewhere on a farm. And after that, we went back home. And now we are on this journey since October again. And we've been to South America, Central America, and now we are in North America.
so right now you're like in the last part of your journey, or the
Yeah, in a way, yes. Like we will be back in December in Germany, so we have 3 or 4 more months where
yeah.
we will travel through North America, including Canada and US, and then the finale will be in Cape Town in South Africa.
And along your journey, what are like the main discoveries you've made,
Mhm.
and in relation to the work, the way people work around the world?
So I think one thing came quite clear that we need a good mixture of on-site work and remote work. So like the perfect hybrid setting in a way. And we learned that this can be really different for people in different places. So for some, it's crystal clear that it needs to be fully remote. That's the only way. And others told us that they really need the office. So what we learned is that there is no easy solution as always.
Yeah.
Besides that, we learned a lot around purpose driven work. So it doesn't matter how hard the circumstances are, for example, in the country, if you have purpose in what you are doing, you are way stronger, you will last way longer, and you will fight way more for what you are doing.
So you said that some people have told you that on-site work, they say that that's the way, and other people are saying that just remote works for them. Have you found like any characteristics for companies saying that for us it's better to work on site and for us it's better to work remotely?
Mhm. So I think one characteristic is for the companies who say we work remotely now, that they have all processes and all kind of work schedules, everything kind of already digital. So for them, it's way easier to do it completely online. For the companies who want to also stay in the office, it sometimes differentiates between the management and the other folks. So there we learned that um, these companies quite often have topics, for example, around trust, around decision making. So they still, in my opinion, they still have some topics they have to figure out how to do it best. Um, and we also met companies where people told us that, like, they, especially in Latam, they said like, okay, we want to be able to, I don't know, like talk to people, have our hugs in the morning, etc. So for them, it was
Yes.
really important that they have this personal interaction with each other.
Yeah, that's another thing I was going to ask you. How do you think teamwork differentiates between on-site and remote?
I think on site it's way more interactive and shorter interactions because it's easily done, right? Just ask your neighbor, like, what do you think? And then I have the answer. Remote, in my understanding, is different in terms of um, you have more. You have more communication that is not happening at the same time, so it's asynchronous.
Yeah.
And with that, everybody needs to be way more structured in their own work so that this can fit to the others when they also have their own work they need to structure. So I think it is sometimes a little bit harder to do everything remote because you really have to take care about your stuff.
Yes, I was thinking what you said that when you're on site, you have a partner or a workmate, and you just ask them. You can just stand up and go to their office or to their desk. While if you're fully remote, if you want to ask something to someone else, you have to schedule a meeting. Even though it's a 2-minute meeting, you have to schedule it.
Yeah. It's so true. And this takes time, and sometimes people don't like it. The big upside, of course, is that you have way more options for deep work, for focus
Yeah.
work, because, like, when you are in your tunnel and you shut off, I don't know, Slack or whatever it is, then you really can focus. And that's amazing, of course, because nobody is knocking on your door all five
Yes.
minutes. So that's, I think, it's a big advantage of it.
You talked about that at the time you were stalked by Corona,
Mhm.
and here in Honduras it was big deal for us because most of the business weren't ready for a remote situation. So a lot of people wasn't ready,
Mhm.
and it was difficult on different levels because there was not the mindset ready to work from home. So that's you said that sometimes when you're in the zone and you're in your space, but a lot of people did not have their space at home.
Mhm.
So they had to be with their families. They didn't have like a special place at home where
Yeah.
to work from, and that's like a big deal, I think. And the other thing, it's technical issues because a lot of people do not have the bandwidth at home with a reliable internet speed to be able to work from home. So those are factors that influenced remote work.
I totally agree, Luis, and it's something we definitely have to consider. And if companies say we stay in the remote work, my point of view is that they have to support the local or the home office situation in terms of, at least in terms of bandwidth, that people have a strong internet connection where they can work from home. But I agree also on the other part, like for me it would mean, especially in a situation where you have no other choice than to work
Yeah.
from home, that you really have to figure out also with the team, with the company, like, okay, what does it mean right now if I have not my private space back home because we have a small flat and there are children there, etc. Then it's all about figuring out, okay, what is possible from home and what is not possible from home right now, right? Because it was a special situation.
Yes. And also it happened that now there are companies that they don't want to go back to on-site because they figured out we can spend less in rent because we're renting less meters, and so they're making their employees work from home. But they have to understand what you said, that they have to reach an agreement. Okay, we're going to help you with the bandwidth, sometimes the equipment, because not all personnel has computers. They should provide them computers also, and help them set their personal workspace at home.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's a responsibility, especially when you will save money on the other side, right? When you have a smaller
Yes,
office space, for example. So, in my understanding, it is part of our duty as companies to take care of that, because these people are our employees and they work for our company. So, I think it is an important thing to show the support, and to really support in a way that it makes a difference.
and it's a matter of productivity also. If you don't give your employee an environment that helps their productivity, they will not be productive.
Yeah.
Say so, their work, the output of their work will be affected because they don't have the right conditions.
Yes, for sure. We worked with one client where one person I did a coaching with
Yeah,
had a old laptop that was so slow that like the person always had to wait for 1 or 2 minutes until like something bigger on the computer and the program was done. And I mean, she was so frustrated about that.
of
So I think
course.
it's super important to have everything in order to do a good job.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you about my experience because I live
Please.
with my brother, my brothers. Uh, that there's three of us. I have a sister and a brother. So my brother works at a TV station, so he's in production. So he had to work always. He always worked on site because his job, it's not possible to do it remotely. It would be possible, but it would be way too expensive for the TV broadcasting company to set up a remote station for every employee, and there's a lot of teamwork.
Yeah.
They have to coordinate with cameramans, with lighting, with electrician, with a lot of technicians, and also since they're making live news, they have to have like a headquarters where to go and have their supplies, etc. So he always had to go to the office. Then I was doing coaching, and I started making content because I couldn't work with other work. And then my sister was working as a teacher.
Hmm.
So I had the problem that since at that time we only had 10 megabytes per second,
Hmm.
in the mornings I just had to let her work because their video calls with the students, they would fall down if I started uploading a video to YouTube, for example.
Okay.
So I had to make the decision. I have to invest and with a greater bandwidth that it would support the work of the three of us, because sometimes before going to work my brother did some freelancing work from home, and he also had to send files, large files to their clients. So if with not the right bandwidth, it takes longer,
Yeah.
and you cannot do your work properly.
Yeah, sounds like something you really have to figure out a way to go together, right? And I think that is the typical situation in most households where you have to find a way that works for everybody, and still it often means that you have to cut some corners and that you have to figure out a way how to adapt with each other. And I think for that again you need good communication, right? You need to figure out like,
Yeah.
okay, who is needing what the
Yes,
most at what time.
exactly.
What does it mean also for the others, right?
Yes, and also it affected because since we were at home most of the time, there's also when you need entertainment, you also need internet connection. So sometimes they're watching Netflix, and I wanted to upload a video to YouTube. That made it slow the what they were streaming.
Yeah.
So another thing, I was talking with some colleagues, it's about productivity and how important it's the setup that you have. If you're working remotely, that you have the correct setup for your work. It's not that you're working from your bed. It's not that you're working in the living room. How do you manage to have a correct remote setting for your work?
I think that is a tough one because it also really depends on what kind of person you are when it comes to productivity. So I can maybe share a few learnings we had on our journey from us, but also from people we worked with. So I think productivity is always a state of mind. And I think to be a little bit more bold about it, I think productivity is also in a way a decision if you have your surrounding that supports you. So what do I mean by that? I think there are certain hacks, certain things you always can do in order to increase your productivity. You can, before you start a certain task, you can always think about, okay, what is most important, how much time should it take me, so that you, for example, can do your time boxing and set an alarm that you don't need 3 hours for something where you thought it would only take you 1 hour. um, I think it's super important that if possible, you get rid of all the stuff around, for example, your laptop, your computer, so that you don't get sidetracked that much. And I think it is really important to work with priorities, because quite often we don't do that. And then we start with something unimportant, which takes way too long. Then we
Yeah,
don't get the stuff done that was most important for the day. And then, of course, we have a problem, right? So, one thing I always do, and we always do, is we always in the beginning figure out, okay, what is most important today? And these are the things that we definitely should push, and not, for example, start working on it at 4 or 5 p.m. already, right?
yeah. And I think those tips work also if you work on site.
Yes.
Yes. But and another tip I have heard someone told you, and it's what usually people do, is that first thing you do when you go to your office is open your email.
Hmm.
Someone told me that's not something you should do, because what you're letting do, it's letting others to dictate
Yeah.
what are you going to start working on, because you start seeing things from the past. It's very important that you set what your priority is going to be when you start working.
I would agree, Luis. I think it's super important to. We always say like, it feels way better to work in a proactive way, and proactive
Yeah.
means that you are
You decide.
ahead of everything and you decide, right? When you just try to get things done that came to you, then it's almost only reactive work. And in my experience, it can be way tougher, and it will make you more tired after a while. So at least the combination is something people should aim for.
Okay. And how do you manage to have a setup for work remotely, considering that you're traveling?
Hmm.
You're not always in the same spot, so it's not like, because when we got into the pandemic, I was talking to several people who were used to working as freelancers remotely for different companies, and they say it's very important for me to have a setup at home. I have an office at home, and that's the space where I work. And my family has to understand that if I'm in that space, they don't have to bother me because it's as if I'm in the office, as if I'm outside the home. And also it helps the brain because it helps us get in on the mindset
Yeah.
where you're at work. You're not in the place where you relax. You're not in the place where you have entertainment. You're a place where you're productive.
Hmm.
So how do you manage to reach that while you're traveling?
I think we only reach that while we are traveling, when we really figure out what we want to do, because we are at so many different places all the time. So we have no physical routine in that sense, that there's always this one place where we can work best. So every new place we figure out again, like how we can work here. What
Yeah.
are the like, we sometimes we need more than one room, of course, because we are having calls at the same time. Then we also figure out, like, okay, who is doing what from where, what makes more sense. For example, right now it was that Anna was sitting here like 20 minutes before me and did a coaching. And then it was clear that we have like only 1 or 2 minutes to change rooms. So now she can do a more relaxed work, like the post preparation in our sleeping room, and I'm kind of sitting here in the living room slash working space. So for us, it's about timing.
Yeah.
It is definitely about improvising. So maybe also pushing a chair or a table a little bit somewhere else that works better for us. And then before we leave, push it back. So we try to have different hacks to improve our work setup, and sometimes it's really improvised. It's also part of it, but then it's most important that you really know what you are doing and why you are doing what you are doing.
Something I usually tell people I coach or entrepreneurs I work with is that there's not a secret recipe for success.
Mhm.
So you have to figure. There's a lot of things that you have to figure out for yourself because we're not all the same.
Yeah.
The things that would work for you, might not work for me. But the important is to listen to others and help you that incorporate into your work. So I have been asked a lot about remote work. There's a lot of people in Honduras that they're interested in start working remotely for companies abroad. So could you be able to provide some tips of how to get a remote work?
Hmm. I think it's super important that you know crystal clear what you are offering and why you are a good fit for this possibility, for this job. So I think it's crucial to really know what you are capable of doing and what you want to do. Then I think it's super important that you can kind of that you can make sure that you have a stable internet connection, that there will be no problems around that. Otherwise, companies will probably not hire you. And third, I think, like, there are so many marketplaces right now where you
Yeah,
can start, right? So I think if you have no connections yet to certain companies in, I don't know, the US and Europe, wherever it is, I think like these typical marketplaces like Fiverr or others can be a good entry point to get also a feeling about clients from different countries, because they will probably tick a little bit different. Um,
yeah.
and then I think my approach would always be that after having some experiences there, I would try to proactively approach companies directly, because then you don't have the middleman anymore, so you will earn probably a little bit more money.
Okay, yeah. For this last part, I would like to ask you about your experience on Honduras because how long were you here?
Sadly, not long enough. So we were in Honduras almost a week, and we were just in Tegucigalpa.
Yeah. And did you have the chance to go to the surrounding towns like
Mhm.
Valle de Angeles, Santa Lucia?
We just went by when we drove by bus, so we didn't stop there. So we just have a tiny impression of it.
So, which would you, according to the little time you spent here,
Yeah.
which would you say that are the biggest challenges
hmm
um, Hondurans have relating to the way we work?
hmm I mean, it is tough to say, right? Because I think for a really really good statement, you need more time in the country. But I will try. So I think one big challenge is that the internet connection here and there can be probably a little bit tougher, and you have to pay
Mm-hmm.
way more in comparison to the income than in other countries. So I think that is quite unfair and a challenge.
Yeah.
Um, Besides that, biggest challenge. I mean, the thing is that like we really loved being in Tegos. So we met wonderful people. We met people with so many great ideas. So my impression was that even though the kind of the news in the world about Honduras are quite often more the bad news. We had
Yes.
the feeling that while being in Honduras, wherever we went, and we always try to people from completely different jobs. So we always talk to the waiters, we always talk to the Uber drivers, we always are interested in hearing more. Um, and there was so much hospitality, and people were so friendly to us, and they were so open-hearted. So I would say that like hiring someone remotely from Honduras when they have a good internet connection and they have a place to work, I think it's always a good idea because I had the feeling that people are also quite educated. So my impression was that um, it should be way easier for Honduran people to get a remote job because like the main setup seems to be quite well and the education quite high.
Okay. So, thank you very much for sharing this with us. And can you tell us if someone is interested in knowing more about what you're doing, where can they find you?
So there are different places how to find us. Of course, we have a website where we also put in information about our global modern work tour. It's called movomind.com. You see the Movomind next to my name here on the screen. Besides that, like our main channel is our YouTube channel, and it's called the Schnells, our handle. It's like our last name that we have. So it's YouTube and then the Schnells. So I think there you find like all the recap videos about all the countries, etc. I think that can be quite interesting. And of course, please connect via LinkedIn. You will find
Yes.
me there as well. And I think that's the best option because it's the most active network I'm in. So it works really well.
Okay, thank you very much. And I hope you have success in what you're doing.
Thank you very much, Luis. Thanks for the opportunity. I wish you and all the Honduran people all the best. We will come back for sure. We loved it there. So for us, it was a great privilege to come to your beautiful country.
Okay.